It was at this moment I realized I had made a huge mistake. The RuneScape map is split into chunks. I will restrict myself to unlocking one chunk at a time, only moving on when I've completed all of the content in my current chunks. The goal of this account is to unlock the entire map. This is Chunkman only, my one chunk at a time Iron Man. We left off last episode with around 1300 pest control points. I had to get 1510 to get all of the items that I needed. So I did a few more rounds of pest control and finished up the points. By the end, I had almost 300k just from pest control, which pushed my cash stack over 1 mil for the first time. To buy and wear the void armor though, I needed to get level 42 ranged, as I had all the other requirements already. So I took my best range gear to hill giants and started killing them. I decided on hill giants because I could get more law and cosmic runes, as well as big bones, for some extra prayer XP. While killing the hill giants, I got a few good rune drops, as well as a beginner clue. After a while of killing them, I got the 42 ranged and was finally able to buy the void gear. I bought the full set, all the helmets, the mace, and the seal, and was good to go. This is definitely a huge improvement for every combat style, so I was really happy to get this done. I then completed the beginner clue that I had gotten from hill giants, which lengthened my streak of no uniques from clue scrolls. My clue luck is honestly just pretty funny at this point. Now it was time to decide what to do next. I mentioned last episode the hunter grind that I had backlogged when I unlocked Land's End. And in previous episodes, we had discussed potential ways to unlock the skill in ways that wouldn't force me into a long grind. I decided it was time to unlock Hunter and unlock some good ways to train the skill. There were two locations I could unlock, the Piscatoris Hunter area and the Oozer Hunter area with orange salamanders. The Piscatoris Hunter area had tons of hunter creatures, probably about 10 of them in total. The highest level of them was the Dashing Kevits, which required level 69 Hunter. If I unlocked these, then I would be able to get a Spottier Cape, which would be my first weight reducing gear. This would be very helpful in almost every aspect of my account to save run energy. I was currently level 12 Hunter. The only hunter creatures I currently had access to were Ruby Harvests and Chinchampas. I obviously couldn't catch these yet, and had no way to train the skill. Ruby Harvests require level 15 Hunter, and Chinchampas require level 53 Hunter, as well as the Eagle's Peak quest. The only hunter creature with a low enough level for me to catch that I could feasibly unlock was the Copper Longtails to the east of Land's End. Because of this, I thought that I could unlock the entire Piscatoris Hunter area, as well as the Orange Salamanders, and backlog all of those hunter goals, so I could push them to a current goal once I unlock the Copper Longtails. Another way to phrase this is that if I unlocked all the higher level hunter monsters before the ones I could actually train on, I wouldn't be able to actually catch any of them because I couldn't train the skill. So this way I could have a lot of options to train at every point in the grind by having them all unlocked before I could even start the grind. I hope that makes sense. So I started to unlock the chunks to take me on my path to the Piscatoris Hunter area. The first chunk to unlock was the chunk with the fishing guild. Here, there were no new goals for me to complete. The minnow fishing is locked behind the full angler's outfit and the fishing contest quest, so I added that to my backlog. The next chunk was the one west of the fishing guild. Again, nothing new to do, so on to the next chunk, which was south. Nothing new here except the combat training arena. There was an easy Ardoin task to go into the training area, but it was locked behind the biohazard quest, which I couldn't complete. So I added that to my backlog and moved on to the next chunk, which was west again. Here's where things got a bit interesting. There are two main things to notice in this chunk. I'll start with the less interesting one, the start of the Making History quest. I couldn't start this because I couldn't complete the prerequisite quests, so I added this to my backlog. The other, more interesting thing in this chunk was the gnome guards and mounted terror birds at the entrance of the tree gnome stronghold. This might not seem like anything at all consequential, but once I checked the wiki for their drop tables, it seemed to be. The drop table listed lemons as drops for the mounted terror birds, and lemons and cocktail glasses as drops for the gnome guards. These, along with an orange and pineapple, which I already had access to because of the charter boat shops, could be used to make a dirty blast, which I need for the first part of RFD. So I'd need to kill the gnome guards and terror birds to get these drops, and make the dirty blast before I could move on to another chunk. Seems pretty easy, right? These are fairly low-level monsters, and the wiki lists the drops as common or uncommon, so it shouldn't take me too long. I got out my void gear and started to kill them. I spent about 40 minutes killing them, and the only drop I got at all was just bones. Nothing else. Literally only bones every single kill. I knew something was up with this. There's no way I'm this unlucky. So I decided to ask around to figure out if the wiki was wrong. I asked in Pookaguy's Discord, and thankfully Philip M informed me that the monster database lists nothing as their drops. I'm not exactly sure what the monster database is, but with this bit of information, as well as my own anecdotal experience killing them and getting absolutely nothing, I was fairly confident that the wiki was wrong. It really makes me wonder where the hell these drop tables even come from. Who puts those random items on their drop tables in the wiki? I mean, this information must come from somewhere, right? The drops listed are just so random. Like, how did they get on the wiki? Is it RS3 drops or just someone adding a bunch of misinformation? I'm curious to know if you guys have any theories as to how this got on the wiki. Anyway, it kind of sucks because if I was able to complete the first part of RFD, I'd have access to the chest in the basement, which I could get grapes from, which would give me access to a really fast cooking method in making wines. Oh well, at least I knew I could move on now. I then went to the chunk west of this one, which had nothing new. Next was north, which was again nothing new. The chunk after this was north again. This was the chunk with Eagle's Peak. I had initially thought I may need to complete the Eagle's Peak quest here, but it turns out the quest start is actually in the Ardoint Zoo, so I didn't need to worry about it. In this chunk, there were ferrets, but since those were caught with box traps, which are locked behind the Eagle's Peak quest, and also they're a higher level hunter creature than I could catch, I didn't need to worry about them. Now I was one chunk away from unlocking the first part of the Piscatoris hunter area. I decided to do my final checks to make sure I knew what I was unlocking, and in doing so, I noticed that the wiki lists copper longtails as part of this hunter area. This would mess up my plans as I wanted to unlock the chunks first and a training method after I had all the creatures unlocked. And I had the level to catch copper longtails, so this wouldn't work. Since it didn't end up working out, I needed to think of a new plan. After looking into it further, it turns out that the copper longtails are split between the first chunk I would unlock in the Piscatoris hunter area and the one north of it. This meant that the spawns could potentially be mostly in the northern part, so if I unlocked the first chunk, I could potentially be stuck catching birds that barely wandered into my unlocked chunk. I decided the best thing to do was to just go ahead and unlock the copper longtails in Land's End. Even if I ended up not getting the most efficient hunter method for every level range up to level 69 for the dashing kebits, this was the best that I could do, so I saw no other way. So I went to Land's End and unlocked the chunk with the longtails. Before I could move on, I would need to get level 15 hunter for the ruby harvests, as that's the highest level hunter creature I unlocked that didn't require a box trap. So I caught a few longtails and got to level 15 hunter. I went to the bank to get my net, and then when I tried to catch them, I realized I needed a butterfly jar. So I went back to the bank to get the jar and realized I didn't have one. So I thought that I had gotten one earlier from searching all of the crates in Land's End. Since these crates were the only way I could currently get hunter supplies, I knew that if I didn't get them from there, I couldn't get them at all right now. I then searched all the crates in the area for a third time, as I had already done it twice, but I wanted to be absolutely sure. And sure enough, no butterfly jar. So I wasn't able to catch the ruby harvests after all. Kind of odd considering the crates contained butterfly nets, but no jars. So with this out of the way, I went back to the Piscatoris hunter area and unlocked the first chunk. Here, there were more ferrets, which I couldn't catch because they require a box trap. There were rabbits, which required ferrets to catch, so I obviously couldn't catch them either. There were also certain kevets that could be caught by tracking. It turns out though that I would need a noose wand to catch these, which I didn't have and couldn't get, so the only hunter creatures in this chunk that I could access were the copper longtails, which I could already catch in Land's End, and the wild kevets, which could be caught using a deadfall trap at level 23. So I went back to Land's End and trained level 23 on the copper longtails there. I then caught a wild kevet and was ready to move on. The northern chunk of the Piscatoris hunter area contains prickly kevets, which can be caught at level 37 with a deadfall trap. Along with these, the only other new hunter creatures in the area that I could catch with the supplies I currently had were the ones caught with falconry, which I wouldn't unlock until I unlocked the chunk with the entrance to the falconry area. When I was looking at my path to the chunk with the entrance to this area though, I started to think about how I would get to that chunk, and in doing so, I noticed a big flaw in my current rules regarding accessible chunks. My rule for unlocking chunks with boundaries in them was that as long as there was something I could access in the chunk that would be a new goal, I could unlock it. However, imagine if I was level 68 hunter before I unlocked any of the 4 chunks with part of the falconry area. Notice that the only chunk I could possibly access first is the southwestern one, since the other chunks are not adjacent to anything that could possibly be accessible. If I was level 68 hunter, the only thing in the southwestern chunk that could be considered a new goal is the dashing kevets within the falconry area, which is not accessible and stuck behind a boundary. Because of this, with my current rule, I would be unable to ever unlock the chunk, and thus the entire 4 chunks of the falconry area would be completely locked. Obviously, this isn't something that I want to ever be possible. The original intention of this rule was to mitigate backlogging things, as I wanted to make it easier on myself to remember what I had backlogged and would need to come back to later. However, now that I have my backlog spreadsheet, and Slay to Stay is working on the update to the RuneLight plugin that displays backlog data in-game, this was no longer an issue. So because of this, I felt fine about just getting rid of this requirement. I tried to think of ways to change the rule, but kept finding flaws in them, so for now, I would get rid of this requirement. I don't think this makes anything easier, and all it really serves to do is to make sure that I am unable to lock myself out of ever unlocking certain chunks. After thinking about that and considering my path for what to do going forward, I realized what I needed to do and came up with a plan. The wild and prickly kevets both had deadfall trap areas right next to copper longtails. This meant that I could catch the wild kevets along with copper longtails until level 37 hunter. I could then train level 37 to 47 on prickly kevets and copper longtails, and then unlock orange salamanders, training on them until level 57 for dark kevets, which I would train on until level 69 for the dashing kevets. There were also a few chunks devoid of content in the Piscatoris area that I could unlock. Then I would finally unlock the falconry area and get to level 69. So I started training my hunter. Along the way, I also needed something AFK to do for part of the time I was training, so I decided to fish some tuna and swordfish in the fishing guild. as I needed 81 fishing and 91 cooking for Port Khazard in the near future anyway. So with this as my plan, I got to work. While fishing, Posty Pete came up behind me, asking me if I wanted to help out Molly by catching her evil twin. Cool, some free emeralds, I thought. I told Posty Pete, sure, anything for Molly. While I was fishing, I wasn't paying attention to the screen. I was watching a Smash Bros. Melee tournament in another window. There was a great match happening, and I didn't want to divert my attention. So once I got into the random, I still wasn't paying attention. I clicked on the door and spammed through the dialogue. I got through and went to the lever. And that's when it hit me. I didn't pay any attention to what Molly looked like. I didn't know which person was the evil twin. Once you go through the door, Molly doesn't appear to you anymore, so I had no way to figure out what to do. I knew I had fucked up. I made a guess twice, and then Molly yelled at me to come back and talk to her. I had imprisoned 2 innocent people. I turned on my recording software and prepared myself. I knew that she'd teleport me to somewhere random. I just had to hope it was somewhere I had already unlocked. It was the moment of truth. Fuck. I definitely wasn't supposed to be here. I sat there for a moment, stunned. I can't believe I made such a stupid mistake. After a few seconds of sitting there, taking it in, I realized I had to get out of there. I casted home teleport and was finally back where I needed to be. Sorry that was so over the top, I couldn't help myself. Seriously though, that's such a stupid mistake. I'm definitely gonna pay more attention to what Molly looks like from now on. Even though this technically ruins my account, I'm not gonna quit just because of that dumb mistake. The only thing my account gained from this was a music track. I've also accidentally stepped into a locked chunk at least once before because of the pathing algorithm. So there's at least one other music track I have that I shouldn't have access to. There's only 2 things in this game as far as I know that music tracks affect. The music cape and certain clue scroll steps. Whenever I have to do a clue scroll that uses a music track, I'll check to make sure that it's not a track that I shouldn't have access to. If it is, I'll act as if I never unlocked the track and drop the clue. Same thing goes for the music cape, although that will probably be one of the very last things I do on this account. So, while that really stings and I wish I hadn't made the mistake, the account will go on and I'll be more careful in the future. Now, time to resume grinding. And that's all the progress I have for this episode. I'm currently level 50 hunter and still training at the orange salamanders. Next episode, I plan to train more hunter, fishing, and figure out more specifically the exact stats and chunks I'll need before Motherlode Mine. There's quite a few skills I'll need to train, and I plan to figure out as much as I can of what I'll need. If you remember from previous episodes, I want to unlock Motherlode Mine as soon as I can, because there's tons of chunks that I'm blocked from going to, because they would make me mine or smith, adamant, or rune. Motherlode Mine would mean unlocking the Mining Guild, Amethyst, and Keldegrim though, so there's a lot to think about. I'm planning on getting into a bunch of the specifics and long-term planning next episode, so stay tuned for that. Before I end the video though, I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. That's right, it's plural now. Big thanks to Boogieboy for being my newest patron and joining the club with Kyl Barry. Seriously, thanks so much to both of you. It means a lot to me and motivates me a ton to keep grinding and improving my videos. Anyway, here's the part of the video where I sell out and ask you to click buttons that give me dopamine. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. You can also join Kyl Barry and Boogieboy and become a patron. I'll give you a shout out and add you in game. Subscribing, liking, or becoming a patron helps my channel grow, and you know what? You've heard this enough times already. You know the whole spiel. Do what you want. I hope you all have a great day.